Hi, this is Lady Lex UK, and this is a Dreams tutorial. We've been working on our enemy fight scenario, and I've added more things to it. I've got to be careful because I keep getting excited and adding things to it, and I end up with like 3 or 4 things rather than just a couple, and then it makes us for a longer video. I do apologise, but I've got to show you these things in time, so here we go. So what have I added? Last time we added a game over situation, so that when the player lost all his lives, the game ended. I've improved that, so we've now got the player the option to restart the game or exit. I had a request from one of my subscribers, could you add a face attacker mechanic to this, so that when you're attacking, you're actually facing the enemy. I was a little bit dubious of that. I was a bit worried that there might be conflict if there was more than one enemy and it might be difficult to do. Actually, it was pretty simple. So yes, I've added that for you, and I will explain that one to you. In the monster, I have added a loot drop. So now he's going to drop a treasure chest when he dies, and also a sidestep to his attack, and also when you stab him, so he's going to move slightly out of the way to give you a little bit more life, a little bit more variation in your enemy. So there we go. So that's all those things that we're going to do today. Let's start off with the game over. Right, last time we did the game over. You're familiar with this microchip. So on our end game, what we were doing was we were turning the music off, making our player invisible, turning on some sad music, and this was wired to a doorway. We had the words game over displayed, and then the doorway after the music finished would exit the game. So now we're going to add an option for the player. So instead of ending the game automatically with the music, we're going to give the player the option to end the game with a button press. So I have added a dialogue text displayer. This is very similar to a text displayer, but it's got some extra options in it so that you can have button presses. Now, because we're needing to do a button press, we also need a controller sensor, and because this is not in a player, we need it to be remote controllable. So set that, you need that. This will not work without that, so don't forget to put that in. Here is our dialogue text displayer. I put "you died" in there, and you'll notice there's more text. It's not just on this first page like the text displayer. There's some extra places where you can put text in, and those extra places are here. Right, these are the dialogue properties. You select which buttons you want. Unfortunately, not all the buttons are displayed here. It's just the ones on the front of your controller, so the coloured buttons and the D-pad. It'd be nice if the buttons on the top could be added. Media Molecule, if you're listening, could you add them to the dialogue properties as well, please? That would be nice. So you select which ones you like. I've selected the circle and the square, and you put the text next to it to describe what that button's going to do. And then we have outputs. Here's our output wires. Let's move over here. Output wires to what the action is going to be for that button press. So I've got to retry, that's wired to global settings, and to exit, that's wired to our doorway. So we've taken the wire away from timeline to the doorway, and we've now added it in from our dialogue. Right, so the doorway is exactly the same as it was before, so I don't need to go through that. But the global settings, this is a new gadget, we've added this. And if I go to page 2, at the bottom is a option called reset scene. So that's what I've wired into. This is going to literally reload the level. And you're going to end up back to the beginning. All the variables, all the positions, everything reset as if you'd just come into the level brand new. Now, for my game, this is ideal. This is perfect. This is what I want. It's going to reset the level. That's fine. For your game, that might not be the best option. You might want to just retry a part of the level, maybe not the whole level, in which case you'd have to create your own microchip that resets your variables to where you want them, teleports your player to where it needs to be, etc., etc., and you would link that to the power on that microchip. So you'd have to create your own game resetting microchip and wire that. But for my purposes today and for ease, I've used the global settings. I'm just going to reload the level, and that works perfectly fine for what I want. Right, so there's game over. Face attacker then. Now, I was a little bit concerned because I thought, what would happen if more than one attacker? What would happen? Would the player start spinning around uncontrollably? Actually, no, it doesn't. So I was quite pleased when I added this, and it worked straight away. You could obviously make something more complicated than this, but this is the simple, basic idea. Here is a trigger zone. It is looking for a tag called enemy, so it's looking for a tag called enemy, and I've put an enemy tag over there. You can see it's flashing in our player brain, in our monster brain. So it's looking to detect that tag, and I've got a look at rotator, and that is also looking to look for that tag, and it will rotate our player to face it. I've got the rotation speeds nice and high, so it immediately turns. If you do it too slowly, it looks a bit weird, so do it nice and fast, and there you go. Easy, sorted. He now faces the attacker. He's not going to be sideways trying to stab the player. As soon as the player gets within a few feet of the enemy, he'll start looking at him, and makes attacking actually much, much easier. So thank you for that suggestion from Kif's Tube. Thank you for that. Right then, let's go over to... I'm trying to do this as quickly as possible because people are moaning that my tutorials are too long. Right, okay. Death. When my player dies, I want him to drop some loot. I haven't made this too complicated at the moment, so at the moment it's just an emitter, but I've used a microchip. This is our death timeline. As you remember, here is our health. When the health is at no health, it's going to activate our timeline, which is going to create our death animation. So here's our death animation. Here's the destroyer, etc. So we added a microchip just before the destroyer activates. That's quite important. The microchip has to happen before you destroy the microchip, and it won't happen if you destroy the microchip. This won't activate. So you make sure that is before that. I've put in a microchip, and I've now got an emitter. This is going to emit our loot. So let me select that. So when the monster dies, it's going to emit this lovely treasure chest. I got this from the Dreamverse, and I do apologise. I can't remember the name of the creator. I will probably release this this game when I've finished, so you'll be able to see in the full credits who made that. So sorry that I haven't got the name right now. Right. So here is our emitter, and it's going to emit this treasure chest. I've tried to put the position of where it's going to emit at the feet of our player as he's standing there. Now, I know our player does an animation, he sort of lays down in the air. But if you put this at the feet of our player, that should be correct, and then it will appear, the treasure chest will appear on the ground. Now, I tried to get this so this was a movable object, so it was affected by gravity, so even if it did appear in the air, it would drop to the ground. But for some reason, the game level did not like the number of movable objects in the level and threw up a warning. So I can't do that. I have to have it as a fixed object. So it's just going to drop at his feet on the ground. So make sure, trial and error, will get the right position for your loot. That's going to drop to the ground. Now, I've got a microchip on this object, and I need to show it you. But unfortunately, the emitter has a problem with it. Once you have chosen your emitted object, you can now no longer interact with that object at all. You can't open its microchip, you can't change it, you can't get its tweak menu, you can't do anything. This is a huge problem, and I think Media Molecule need to address this. If you're watching Media Molecule, please address this. We could do with a different system for the emitted objects, because we need to be able to interact with them, and we can't at the moment. So it doesn't matter what I try, I can't open the tweak menu on it. no, I can't activate it at all. And if I don't even have the emitter open, I can't even see the object. So it is a bit of a pain. So how do you get around this? Well, this is my method. Open up your emitter. Make sure this is visible. Go into sculpt mode. Go into stamp. Stamp yourself a cube next to it. Come out. Right. Object to emit. Select the cube. And now you're emitting this cube, and that frees up your object. So now I can go in and open up its microchip. You'll notice I've always got the monster's microchips, all of them open, and there's a reason for that. Because it's an emitted object, if I hadn't opened them up first, I can't interact with them. I can't interact with it, and I would have had to have done this cube thing again, which is a pain. So that's another way of doing it. Open up all your microchips on any emitted object so you can still interact with them, because you can't open them up afterwards. Anyway, we've now opened up our microchip. Here is the impact sensor. This is going to detect, it's looking for a label, it's looking for friend. I don't want it to activate with anything else. So it's only if the player touches it is when we want this to activate. So I've deactivated all of these labels. It's just the friend label it's looking for, which we've got in our player. Right, so when the player is touching our object, it's going to change this variable modifier. That's looking for a variable called gold, and it's going to add 1 when powered on. And also destroyer, which is going to destroy our treasure chest, so it looks as if you've picked it up. That's how you do any sort of, that's one way of doing a pickup. You can also use this with the trigger zone, so you could have a slightly larger, a wider area. I've got this on an impact sensor, so you actually literally have to touch the object. It's entirely up to you whether you use a detect zone or a trigger zone or an impact sensor to do the same job. Either way is perfectly acceptable. So there's our microchip. This is looking for that gold variable. Where is that? That is in its own microchip up here. I've called it gold. Here is our gold variable. This is set with a minimum of 0. Now the maximum is however many you want the player to be able to pick up. This has accidentally got moved from 1,000. That would make more sense. So 1,000 is the maximum I'm saying the player can collect in the game. You can change this to be whatever you want. That's entirely up to you. Set that to 0 and that to whatever you want to. It's got a number displayer and a text to display it on the screen. And I've also got a sound effect. So when this is increased, so from that plus, I've wired that to a sound effect. So it goes ching every time you add to your gold total. This way I don't have to add a sound effect into every object that adds money to my variable. It's just in this microchip, and that is much more efficient than trying to put a sound effect in every single collected object. There's a tip for you. Right then, so that's done our emitted objects. Now I've got to remember to put it back. So emit. And now we can delete our cube. Close down our emitter, and there, boom, it's vanished. There we go. Right, so that's the loot. It's going to collect loot for our player. Now let's have a look at the side step. So here is our attack microchip. Trying to speed through this. Okay, we have our randomizer now. Before, if you remember rightly, this randomizer just sorted out the speed of the attack and had different ones, which is altering this signal generator which moves his arm. But we're also going to have it so that he jumps. And I've just noticed I need to add something. So when he has jumped, we are going to reset that timer. So either of these two options are going to happen. So either he's going to attack, or he's going to do this jump. So what I've got is I've got a node that's connected to jump on the Puppet interface. Now the Puppet interface, jump is on page 1, it's the top one. So you wire into there, and you wire as many of these outputs as you like to that. So you could have it as 1. I've got it so that there's a 3 in 5 chance of him jumping, and that node is then linked in to the jump, and the jump itself has an output for jumped, and that's wired into the power of an advanced mover, and also I've wired it into the reset of that timer. So he either jumps or he hits, and that resets the timer. If he jumps, I've got an advanced mover here, and what this is going to do is going to move him sideways when he jumps, so that you create a sidestep. I'd like to thank Iomu, I can't remember his name. It was a really weird Iomu. I don't even know how to pronounce it. On the forum for the suggestion. He suggested it slightly differently to how I've done it, but the suggestion got me thinking and worked out this. Right, so we're going to turn the power on when you jump. I've got a movement on the X axis, which is the left and right, and I've got him moving at this sort of speed. Now, I've changed all these a few times to try and get it to work. This is the point at which I got it to work. So some of these numbers might actually not be relevant, because I'm thinking maybe that Y speed is not relevant anymore because I've put 100% on that damp. But I'm just going to give you the numbers. So it's 32.9 for the top, 2.4, 0, 70%, 0, 100, 100, and I've clicked on local space. If you don't do this, it's going to do it to the scene, so he could jump forwards instead of sideways or backwards, depending on which way he's facing. So make sure you're in local space, and then he's only going to move in one direction. There you go. That's our sidestep. So when he jumps now, he's going to sidestep instead of just jumping. I don't want the monster to jump anyway. I only want him to jump to the left or right or whatever. So that's what that is doing. I've also got it so he jumps when he is hit. So that counter there, if you remember rightly, which runs our hit reaction, I'm now wiring that up to jump as well. So he's going to jump out of the way when you hit him too. So there we go. Let's have a look then. As you can see, I've got the gold. That's a new thing at the top there for me to collect. Right, let's try and get a monster on his own. There's one in a tree. Is there one in a tree? No, it's just my imagination. It's just a tree. Come on, there we go. I've got one. He's following me. Let's get him out of the way of everybody else. Right, okay. Oh, he's jumped out of the way immediately. Goodness me. Right, there we go. Whoa. As you see, we're turning into our attack. Oh! There we go. He's dropped some loot. And now I've collected it. There you go. Should we do the end game so you can see the end? I think I'll just die. I think that's quicker than trying to kill 5 monsters. Right, I've only got 1 life left. Go on, kill me, monsters. You see, he turned to face. There we go. You died! So I've got an option to retry or exit. I'm going to retry. And there you go. It's reloaded the whole thing. My health is back to 100. I've got 3 lives. I've got no kills and no gold. There we go. It's all looking good. Right. If there's anything you want me to add to this enemy fight scenario, by the way, please let me know in the comments. I will see if I can add things to it. I'm getting near the end of what I want to do with this, to be honest. So this may be the last one. There's obviously little tweaks and things that could be added to this. So let me know if you want me to add any more to this. And we'll... I think next time you see this, I might have made this into a more polished game, and I would have designed him and maybe had a proper quest giver at the beginning and all sorts of things. But I think in terms of adding extra content, we're nearly there. Unless, of course, you come up with some fantastic comment and say, please, could you add? And then I will try that as well. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope that was useful, and I'll catch you in your dreams.